Azrek, and it's great to be seated here with Tokyo Sexwale the morning after his friend Cyril Ramaphosa has now been, I suppose, crowned. I can say crowned, can I? The president of the ANC. Is that the correct term or not really?
Well, friend, maybe you call him a co-accused.
We're going to get there.
Comrade co-accused.
Comrade co-accused.
Yeah.
We're going to get there. You
Yes.
just hang on a second. I'm going to ask you those questions. But the
Yes.
first thing I want to pretty much to open this conversation by saying is you had said and hoped that during this conference, sanity would prevail in the ANC. Do you feel like sanity has prevailed now?
I think that little prayer, mine and many other people, has in a way been answered. We expected this conference to be a rough one. Over the last few conferences of the ANC, splits have arisen thereafter. It does appear this time round, ANC members, as we prayed, that they'll find one another, that there'll be wisdom. It does appear that one thing that is not happening is a split. So we say the end justifies the means. What was the end? Unity. Let's stay together. And what were the means? It doesn't matter how we got there. The fact of the matter is that ANC people are saying we're going nowhere. Ons Dagni, ons Paula Iso. So, but therefore, the problems remain. You are now in the same house. You got to sit down, look up and sort them because those problems have not gone away.
I mean, you talk about this unity, but this unity is not necessarily in Ramaphosa's favor. I mean, he has got a deputy president with the likes of David Mabuza, and he's got Ace Magashule, which are very strong Zuma supporters. We know that. I mean, they, have been by his side the whole time, and they've been described as that Premier League, and they are the two faces of it. So this is going to be a difficult time for him.
It's politics, and one would like to appeal. Whether the slates were smashed or the slates were amalgamated is no longer the issue. The target has been reached, don't be divided. I think the ANC should be able to say to one another, we differed, we fought, we debated, there was conflict, we thought to split, the house divided. Let bygones be bygones. Focus on what the ANC is there for, their people. Not the 5,000 people who are here or 477 something that voted here, but the 50 million South Africans who are looking at this conference and waiting for answers. Not how much Cyril was divided from this one, but let sanity prevail and let wisdom come back to say, this is, after all, an organization of Nelson Mandela, of Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo. If that comes, fine. But if people forget the 50 million South Africans out there and they think now you are bosses because you're in positions, then we will remain in the same rut. It is bye-bye the ANC. But I hope that will not happen, that they'll find one another.
You say something like, let bygones be bygones. Can we honestly as a nation allow bygones to be bygones when we've seen the ANC in and out of court? We've seen the state capture. We've seen corruption. We've seen billions. I mean, talk of hundreds of billions of rands being siphoned out of South Africa and government coffers. It's very difficult to kind of say, okay, well, let's leave that behind us and let's move forward, because some of the promises in the lead up to this is that will be dealt with.
When I say bygones be bygones, I don't mean corruption must be left to run away. The first target of this leadership, the first target of Cyril Ramaphosa, Comrade Cyril, Comrade President, is now to have a strategy on what to do with this monster that has got us to be where we are. We look ugly, make us look good again. So what would I say is the first task of a president like Cyril? Remember, we're co-accused. Cyril and I were accused, Matthew also, of plotting to overthrow the government, of plotting to take the presidency. Okay, now it has happened in a different way. And that came from very dangerous reports which were written about him, about us. Okay, he knows where that comes from, that there are secret intelligence reports written by faceless ghosts outside there, naming all sorts of people, all lies on your table. Be careful. The first thing the president should do is never to allow these funny envelopes with names of people coming to you and then you take decisions, because they'll let you kill your own mother in that report. So keep away from that. Madiba advised that a president must not be fed with gossip and then he believes that thing starts going away. We are where we are because Cyril was called a plotter. I was his co-accused. Well, that's where the problems of the ANC started for the first time, because we had never seen this. This was under Tabo's administration. That was sorted out, and all other things came. So we have got to say, this leadership, look corruption in the eye. That one is not a bygone. That's the focus, because it's about the budget of the people on health, education, housing, and so on. So it's got to be done the way it's got to be done. We congratulate all of them, but stand up, be steadfast, show leadership. Because leadership is not about negotiations. You can negotiations. Finally, you can use that process, but it's about decisive, resolute decisions to correct wrongs within the ANC, and then, of course, society can accept you.
So you've touched on the issue of yourself, Matthew Sposa, Cyril Ramaphosa, the now president of the ANC, wanting to topple Thabo Mbeki. That whole plot, that came around, when was that? In 2001?
Yes.
That was in 2001. And that you still say was absolutely false.
I mean, it was horrifying to wake up, and I was called by comrades. We hear that the police are coming to your house. That you were plotting to overthrow the state, that type of thing. And we went to Madiba. Desmond Tutu, Zweli Zimbabwe. These people stood up for us. And Madiba dismissed this as nonsense. But the report had been given to a president, to a minister of police at that time,
Steve
Tshwete, damaging reputations of people. I mean, how would you get accused that you are plotting to overthrow? There's a coup d'etat. Okay? So I'm saying the president, Comrade Cyril, knows where the danger is. It all starts with gossips in little corners. People believe these things, and then you spread these things. There's funny intelligence reports. It starts there. From there, the rest is true. Because the corrupt people must first corrupt the ANC. Before you get your hands onto Eskom, Telkom, SAA, before you steal in the president's office, as has happened, before you steal as a minister, before you become a thief as a premier, as an MEC, as a councillor, and so on. You've got to corrupt the processes of the ANC so that you open up the road. Now, that's where they should focus, to make sure that these acts of corruption, this thing of turning public purses into private funds, must come to an end. The police must appoint the proper people in police, appoint proper prosecutors, those type of things. That's the way it should go.
Let's go back to the time of Mandela, because we do know that there was a very, very close relationship between Cyril Ramaphosa and Mandela, and yourself as well.
Well, Cyril received us when he came out of jail.
Well,
Yes.
Exactly. Now, if Madiba had to be here now, and I know he wanted Cyril to take over as the president. I mean, this moment is a very defining moment in the history of South Africa, to finally and eventually see, all these years later, Cyril coming in as taking over president. Do you think Madiba would be happy with where we're at right now? And I don't mean yesterday, I mean last night, now, where we are with Cyril as the president of the ANC.
I'm not one who wants to speak for the dead that Madiba would have said, Tam would have said, but let me state what I want to say. There's a famous picture where Cyril received us when we came out of jail. He was in the Nelson Mandela Political Prisoners Release Committee. And he was there when Madiba, holding actually a microphone for Madiba, when Madiba made his first statement to the world in Cape Town, there by the building where they were standing. Speaking from the Mandela Foundation now, it will be a sweet moment. It is that this Cyril, when we now celebrate the forthcoming centenary of Madiba, it is this Cyril who is the president. Jacob Zuma's time is gone. He's yesterday's man. His bags are packed, as I like saying, in the departure lounge. The president of the country is going to be Cyril. Okay? That's what the ANC constitution says. Our president in the ANC, that candidate is the one who's going to be the president. So they've got to now sort out when the president, Cyril becomes the president of the country. But I think it will be a sweet victory to see Cyril leading this country during the time when the centenary of Madiba is being celebrated worldwide. And from the Mandela Foundation, we're pushing this centenary very, very
Which
much.
is next year. So do you think that President Jacob Zuma will be delivering the State of the Nation address come the opening of Parliament?
Well, I hope not. I hope not. Because, by that time, a State of the Nation is a direction the country must take. I think it's better left in the hands of the new president. But of course, that's not my decision. Okay, I'm not a member of the NEC. I'm just a common member, as I told you, member of the African National Congress. Some of us should just be that. So I hope, if President Zuma does that, fine. But I hope not, so that he can give the new president a chance to set the tone. That's a tone-setting speech. And I would find it difficult that when a man is in the departure lounge, when he's yesterday's man, he wants to talk about the future. Leave that to new people.
How strong is Cyril Ramaphosa? And I ask you this because we saw Cyril Ramaphosa as deputy president during very, very telling times of the ANC, of times when the ANC lost all of the major cities here in South Africa, where they lost major votes of supporters that would die for the ANC and for the movement. They lost that. And he was there. He was the deputy president of the movement.
That's a very important point to make, because none of the people in the top 6, none of the people in the 80 who are going to be elected must pretend that the problem of the ANC was Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma was the head of the movement, and the head must fall when there are problems. He takes, because the wind outside here keeps on shifting your hair. The wind catches the tallest. So the president, outgoing President Zuma, catches the wind because he's the president. But we will be fooling ourselves, lying to South Africans, were we to say the problems of South Africa and of the ANC are Jacob Zuma's problems. It is a collective. There was a National Executive Committee which was dissolved yesterday. It must atone about what happened. Now, the top 6, all of them were there with Zuma. Nobody should stand up and start blaming Zuma, because he thought to be disingenuous. We love Zuma. He's one of us. He's made mistakes, bad ones too. Very bad ones. Okay? But all the same, he's one of us. What I'm saying is that nobody should now try to use this person who's yesterday's person to point at mistakes of the ANC, all of them coming from this person. But coming to the point of now what? Who's Cyril? I met him 27 years ago, and that's how long we're out of jail. I worked with Cyril, the negotiator, the skillful person, the unionist, but unknown to a lot of us is that we worked with Cyril when there was extreme violence here in Gauteng. Zuma was busy with it in KZN, and I was the chairperson of this province. That time, Cyril and us were working with Rolf Meyer to make sure that we meet people of the army, we do all sorts of things. And I saw his toughness. Sitting the other side is Rolf Meyer, it's us this side, and Cyril is leading the delegation in a situation where there are dead bodies on the ground. He's tough. That's what we are going to need. Not the skillful, smart negotiator. Okay?
You need that
We'll
toughness.
need that too, but at the end of the day, decisions must be made. You don't negotiate, you preside.
All right.
You are now President Cyril, and good luck.
We leave it there. Tokyo Sexwale, thank you very, very much for talking to us here on the program. A little bit late for the news. It's just gone 7 o'clock. Palesa,